Kapil, I've been contemplating whether to reply to your thoughtful response because I don't want to fill your inbox with bland natterings. However, I feel compelled to say thank you. Over the past 2 years, your writings have exposed me to profoundly difficult truths that, at first, I wanted to dismiss because their implications repelled me. What if every solution I've pursued is actually the problem? What if I've been lied to my entire life? What if I'm lying to myself? Yet it was too late. A man cannot unsee a sunrise. Your discourses led me to deeper realizations. Fear exists only in the presence of consequences. Freedom is the only worthwhile thing. All conflict is self-conflict. I'm going to pause there for a moment, Kapil, because I was hoping that we could talk about the conflict that we experience in our lives. And I think I spent those first 39 years mired in conflict that I didn't even realize it was conflict most of the time. In fact, seeking out conflict. And in a way, I was seeking out my own discontent, a sort of lack of peace. And when I stumbled across your words, it opened up this door that helped me, that supported me in a deeper understanding that everything that I was pursuing was fruitless to a great extent. And so I wanted to start with that first statement here. Fear exists only in the presence of consequences. I don't know if I heard you say that or if I saw you write it, but that was apparent to me that I was fearing a lot of things because I was ultimately afraid of the consequence. And often that consequence was I was terrified of what other people might think of me. Can you help me better understand where that comes from?
Where what comes from?
That fear of caring so profoundly and deeply about what other people might think.
Well, it's the world that a human being builds without knowing that he builds it, because it's the only world he knows. And he lives in the larger world, and then he creates smaller worlds out of the larger world. And the smaller worlds are in the form of relationship, in the form of image, and in the form of trying to please others and trying to impress others and gain favor and all of these things. And it's critical for me to say at this juncture that none of those things are wrong. None of those things are good. They are just a side effect and a consequence of being worldly. And any attempt actually to fix those things just leads you more and further into worldliness. And the further and further you get into worldliness, the further and further you drift out to sea. So it doesn't really matter what the detail is. A worldly life is all suffering. It's all misery. You can paint it however you like. You can put on a smile and say you're happy with your circumstances, or you have a lot to be thankful for, and have a gratitude journal and all this nonsense if you wish. But it's just trying to find a pocket of air within a state of drowning. And once again, there's nothing wrong with that, but whatever issue you choose is simply a detail form of suffering, because one has become worldly, and one has therefore has respect and for the world, and values the world, and therefore he values all the things that are said within it by its spiritualists and its self-helpists and its minions and its experts, and he imbibes that and he reads books and he listens to media and he hears interviews and he listens to talks and he imbibes all of that information and he goes off upon a journey of what are fundamentally lies. And they're not necessarily intentional lies. In fact, I don't believe that most people are out to hurt people. I don't believe that at all. I believe that most people are trying to help people. Most so-called experts are trying to do good for their fellow man. I firmly believe that. But the effect remains that it's still all lies. And when I say it's lies, I mean, no one should ever believe me on that. That's something that they can examine for themselves. Because if they believe me and say, well, you're saying it's a lie, so then give me the truth, then it's going to be everything being dependent upon what I say. And that has no relevance. Everything comes down to realizations for oneself.
I was one of those liars without knowing that I was, right? In my late 20s, I had sort of climbed the corporate ladder and achieved some material success after growing up really poor. And I thought that would complete me, make me happy, etc. And obviously, as you've already illuminated here, it did the opposite. And so I at first renounced the things, the material success, shunned the accomplishments, the achievements. And I realized in a perverse way that sort of tethered me to those things. I think of it as a sort of layer cake of consumerism. And it's possible to trade in material consumerism for other forms of consumerism, whether that's experience consumerism or spirituality consumerism. You know, we can get rid of our fancy things and then become consumers of meditation or consumers of some other sort of dogma, right? But also consumers of prescriptions. And you've written rather eloquently, and I think this is the thing that is most difficult to grasp at first. But I think as soon as I got over this hurdle of prescriptions, it was wildly helpful. So can we talk about the problem with what is a prescription in the sense of how you use it, and what is the problem?
Prescriptions are how-tos, hacks, 5-step plans, methods, techniques. These are the only currency that exists in the world today, from the domains of the most spiritual and so-called sacred to the domains of the outright materialistic and worldly. It's literally the only thing that exists. There is no such thing as a domain or an expert or a discipline or a teaching or a book or anything that exists anywhere on this planet that is not a prescription, whose philosophy is not founded entirely and solely and exclusively upon prescriptions. Everyone has been conditioned everyone has been brainwashed. And the brainwashing is so complete that even the so-called wise men fall for it. And one of the central brainwashings is the idea of how-to. And it is so complete that no one would even think to question it. I mean, what else are you going to ask but how to? You want to become happy? Well, how do I become happy? You want to become a success? Well, how do I become a success? You want to make money? Well, how do I make money? How do I do this? And how do I do that? And therefore, when the demand is there, the supply is created and they both feed each other. So it's the blind leading the blind. You can examine in your own life that if anything was based upon a how-to, then all you would need to do is find out who became a success, read their book, and then you would become equally a success. And as far as I can tell, that doesn't really happen. So nothing is this this is how I did it, and you follow these 5 steps. I mean, you can do that for mechanical things. You can turn on a computer and you can maybe open and close, Venetian blinds. There's a how-to to that. Things that are mechanical, things that really don't mean much, but things that are in anything towards a realm of art, anything towards a realm of anything significant or lasting or real, there's no how-to. And there's no point in trying to beat that drum. In the same way that there's no point in beating any drum about anything that I write about.